Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to All That Jam Live. This is our first time doing this here on Facebook. I'm super excited. We've got Pete from Canopy here. Pete, how are you doing today?
Doing real good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. You got it. Of course, Kevin's here as well. Kevin, how's Baltimore today?
It's a lovely day. Got the windows open. Had to steal screens from some other windows so the cats didn't jump out of the good ones to have open. So
Well, got to do that sometimes. Well, Pete, I am so excited to talk with you today. I know we've got a bunch of different things that we want to get into.
Yeah.
Before we do that, though, how's everything? You all have been busy. I know that you have had a lot going on. You all had an album come out already this year, right? Your self-titled album.
Yeah. That came out just less than 2 weeks ago. So that's been nice to have that out in the world finally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about that. Before we get into that, though, I always like to ask people, in your own words, could you describe Canopy for us? Of course, there's information on the website, but I like to hear, like, from your own heart, how would you describe
Yeah.
your music?
Um, I mean, just risk taking, full throttle, rock and roll. As a trio, we're kind of borrowing a little more from some of like the older, like heavier bands that were still getting real psychedelic, Cream, Hendrix, of course, things like that. But also still heavily influenced by the more modern jam scene. So yeah, just really like heavy risk taking, full throttle,
Yeah.
funky, rocking, something like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to get into it because, in terms of being a trio, this is something that comes up for Kevin and I all the time, actually.
Mm,
I think we have some kind of radar for three-piece bands, as we talk to so many.
right
Um,
on.
in your opinion, does being a trio make it easier to take some of those risks? And I want to talk about what that means also, but let's start with just, the makeup of the band itself.
Yeah. I do think it makes it easier to take those risks because I always describe it. It's like a smaller ship to steer, whereas like a bigger band, it's
Mhm.
you got more weight on stage. It's tough to make like quick maneuvers, I guess. Not that there's obviously bands that are great at it, but for us, we can really kind of like be on a dime and just follow whatever whim is thrown out there, whether it's by myself or Evan, our bass player, or Kale, our drummer. It's nimble. It feels nimble when we're improvising.
Yeah.
Um, with such a small group of musicians, yeah.
When did you all get together? Can you talk a little bit about the origin of Canopy?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually started in Burlington, Vermont, way back in late 2012, 2013, somewhere thereabouts, with a different bass player, my dear friend Mike. And we kind of just hit the ground running, playing tons of little gigs up there, traveling down through New England, New York. And then 2016 ish, Mike, the original bass player, kind of decided to take a different direction with his life, which is totally understandable. Still a great friend of mine. So that kind of prompted the eventual move to Connecticut. Kale, our drummer, and myself are from Connecticut originally. So we're kind of up there in Vermont. We've both been in Vermont for a bunch of years. We're like, well, let's move back south. There's not much going on for us up here anymore, anyway. Um, so that was 2017. We moved back to Connecticut. He moved back to his hometown, I to mine, and then we found our new bass player, Evan. Funny story, actually. Peter from Goose is who recommended Evan to me. Way back in the day, I shot Peter a message on Facebook just because I knew him from playing with his old band, Great Blue. He's like, "Oh, this guy Evan Tosi, check him out." So we contacted him, and that was early 2018. Hit it off. Chemistry was great, and it's been that lineup ever since. So that's like the long and short of it, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And so, where you are right now, we were talking about this a little bit before the live recording started, but where you are right now is hopping, or at least it seems to be. I live in Denver, so
Mm.
try to keep track of goings on. What is the music scene out by you these days? Like, it looks like it's growing all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, almost any night of the week, there's something going on. I live in New Haven, um, where there's some great little spots. Bridgeport, Fairfield is like really where it's kind of happening right now. We have like Park City Music Hall. I think you know Eric, who manages, he's the GM there. And a little venue called Roadrunner across the street, and just so many good bands on any given night. And it's yeah, there's no shortage. It's great, and it's, you could call it oversaturated, but everyone's like very supportive of each other, and it just feels like a community that's driving each other rather than trying to like be in each other's way. So it's great. I love it.
I love that you said that because, well, Kevin hears this all the time about Denver. The community out here really is supportive, and that's been confirmed, so many times that everybody knows each other. There's a lot of pickup jam sessions or kind of collaborative shows when people are in town, from different bands. And I feel like as a fan, that is one of the things I love most about living here, because there are all these opportunities to see musicians that I really respect in different configurations. You can tell they're having the best time. And it
Yeah.
feels like, from what I see a lot of great sit-ins at shows in
Hmm.
your area. And it really does come across like, yeah, this is a scene that wants everybody to be successful. Would you agree with that?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. It's not without, there's always those little inherent feelings of competition where it's like, oh, such and such band got that great opening slot or that thing, but there's so much opportunity that there's always another opportunity. So generally, everyone's always pretty happy for each other, and sharing. If someone has a contact info for this venue, we'll share it with them, and vice versa. So yeah, it's a lot of just kind of trying to help each other climb that ladder.
Yeah, and with this new album, you all have some incredible music out there. Let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned it was just released very recently.
Hmm.
How long were you working on it? As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you have some live stuff out there, that
Yep.
you can listen to. Is this the first kind of traditional produced album that you all have put out?
It is, yeah. I mean, way back, I think in 2014, we did just like a little demo, like DIY, like in our rehearsal space type of thing. This was definitely the first time we stepped into the studio and relied on the producer a little bit for some input and things like that. And it really, we tracked everything, and it took about like 3.5 days, like full days, which I guess feels pretty quick. And then the post production, you get kicked back the first round of drafts. We go in and do some edits. That definitely took longer, and then just deciding on track lists and album art and stuff like that. It kind of, those are the things that actually ended up taking much longer. But yeah, we
I hear you with that.
yeah, it's funny. It was for sure a learning experience, because we had finished tracking like almost a year ago, and then busy with gigs and things like that. So we're like, all right, well, when we get like a good chunk of time to really get this out there, we'll get it out there. So that has finally happened. Yeah.
So is it weird to listen to where you were a year ago now?
Um, not really, in the sense that with this album being like our debut album, we have some songs on there that are 8 years old. We have some songs that were brand new at the time of recording. We kind of wanted to just span the entire catalog and just kind of like be like, okay, this is what we're about. So
Don't they say you have your whole life to write your first album?
yeah,
There you go.
exactly. Right. So yeah, not super weird. Yeah.
That's cool. What went into the choices? You only have a limited number of songs. I'm sure you have a large pool of songs you could have pulled from.
Yeah, and that was tricky. There was some voting, there was polling our close friends and fans and things like that. There were songs that we were going to exclude that people told us we were crazy not to have on there. So Yeah, it was just kind of choosing ones that I guess sonically like sounded different from each other, while also like including some of our more danceable stuff and the accessible stuff. So just kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
little examples from all the different sounds that we try to make.
So I
very
have a
nice.
question about that, actually. Um, one of the descriptions that I've read about your music, in addition to the risk taking piece, is that um, as a band, you want to be tight and loose at the same time. I think if I'm remembering that.
Yeah, yep, yep.
And I was so curious as to what that means for you all. I mean, I have my own thoughts about it, but
Hmm.
that dichotomy, right? I mean, how do you all achieve that? I guess is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's achieved better than other times. That's like in the live context. We do have our compositions, and the goal is to play those and have them go off without a hitch. And I guess that's where the tightness would come in. And then just improvisationally, it's really about just taking the dive and getting out of your own way and just being loose. Because if you're tight and over analytical and stiff while improvising, um, I think that can kind of be a hindrance when you're trying to get to that place. So yeah, I think that's kind of the how I'd sum that up.
What kind of language do you all speak on stage? This is super fascinating to me when we ask artists about this. And sometimes it's literally, telekinesis. Like, I'm going to look at you and you're going to know what I want. Sometimes it's
Right.
contact mics. How do you all approach that? And I guess I'd also want to know, has that changed over time? Because you all have some history playing together.
Um, Definitely more on the telekinetic side. We try to really just, even with like visual cues, it's sometimes it's at a minimum, because like what we're striving for is like hitting all those transitions and improvisational changes and stuff just intuitively, if we're really like listening to each other. Um, so yeah, very little like actual cues on stage. Like, it's the occasional look over when we're trying to like hit an ending or something like that, but it's really just kind of like diving in and listening to each other, trusting, crazy amount of trust that goes on up there, that everyone's gonna be landing in the same spot. And most of the time it works out pretty well. Sometimes not, but that's kind of the fun of it. Um, so yeah, I would say a lot of attempted telekinesis going on up there.
What goes into the set list? Well, you're right. You have a large pool of songs. We've established that. What goes into
Yeah.
your set list choices night to night?
Um, that's an interesting one, because directly post COVID, when we were kind of like getting back rolling, we were very much not writing set lists, and not even like a song list. We would just be like, all right, let's just go with the flow, see what happens, which is a blast. Um, at times it can feel choppy and disjointed, and more recently we've been incorporating more set list, especially like if we have like an opening slot and we've got 45 minutes, an hour to go up there and just hit it. We'll do a set list for that. Sometimes the longer headline shows will still kind of either do no set list or just have a list of songs that's in mind. Um, so yeah, that's more or less how those are constructed, and trying to just be conscious of maybe sprinkling a cover or two in per set, or um, again, kind of like the album, just trying to space songs out in terms of like ones that sound different enough from each other.
Mm.
Get the flow.
Yeah, exactly.
And you all have some shows coming up with Kung Fu. Do you want to talk a
Hmm.
little bit actually about what you have coming up? You got a bunch this month, I know. Anything you want to share about those?
Yeah, super excited for those. Yeah, we have 2 nights opening for Kung Fu, this Thursday, the 11th, at Putnam Place in Saratoga Springs, and then the following night at Fairfield Theater Company here in Fairfield, Connecticut. Yeah, huge honor to open for those guys, because it's a band that I've been seeing for quite a long time, and they're Connecticut boys. Tim, the guitar player, has become a friend, and it's not an honor to play with them, but also it's going to be fun because it's like a Connecticut jam band hang. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Adrian stopped by the other week and
I
talked
listened
to
to
us
that
a
actually.
little.
Yeah, he's great and always a great guy. And so yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, nice of them to bring us along. It's going to be, I think that Fairfield show will be the biggest room that we've played so far in our career. So that's always exciting, and see what happens. And then the weekend after, Friday, April 19th, we're up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire at the press room. That'll be our first time in that room. Excited for that. And then the weekend after that, it's Broadbrook Opera House in Broadbrook, Connecticut, with our friends Residual Groove, or another amazing up and coming Connecticut band. So yeah, nice little variety between some opening slots, some headline slots. It should be a fun month.
Who were we talking to about Residual Groove, Amanda? And then I was like Perpetual Groove, and then we were like Infectious Grooves, and
I know that came up, and I actually saw that online somewhere too. It's just that modifier. What kind of difference does it make? And I love Residual Groove too. I know that they had a really big show at Park City recently, and so did you, right? You all played one. I know that there was a ton of press and publicity for that one.
Yeah, we had a couple good ones this past year. Back in August, we opened for Elephant Proof, Ben Atkins band, formerly of Goose, and then we played a Thursday night. We had like a 4-night kind of New Year's Eve run, like December 28th through 31st, and the run started at Park City on that Thursday, the 28th. We did a co-bill with our friends Days In, another great Connecticut band. There's so many, and that was a blast. Yeah, it's never not a good time at Park City. It's such an amazing venue. It's like very spoiled to have that in our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's become a spot we try to hit at least usually a few times a year if we can. So
Definitely.
do you feel like Goose's meteoric rise has helped lift the Connecticut scene up, put a spotlight on you guys a little bit?
I do think so. Yeah. It feels like a good time to be a jam band and a jam band,
right?
and yeah, in general and in Connecticut, because there is a spotlight. Sometimes it's funny because you're like, well, like, is that the Connecticut band that's going to make it? Like, can there be another? But you have bands like Eggy that are just on the trajectory, and I always think there's plenty of room at the table. So I think what they've done for the scene is very positive.
You could have multiple bands. Jersey has Bruce and John Bon Jovi and Trey.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
right. No, it's true. And even the little city like Burlington, you got Fish, and then you had Twiddle. It's why not?
Definitely.
I think we need to do an exchange. We need an exchange program for Connecticut bands to come out to Denver, and vice versa, so you all can hit the scene out here.
Yeah, no, and the Denver scene is one that gets talked about a lot here, and because it does seem so vibrant, and a lot of our friends make it out there.
So many great venues.
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to, is if you have the venues who are willing to pay the people to come in and play music for other people,
right,
you're going to have a scene. And if it's all just, you want people just to show up and listen to a DJ, you're never going to have the music scene there.
Yeah, no, exactly. It all comes down to the people that are just willing to make it happen. And I know, like the guys from La Special, I know, head out there a lot. I think Eggy's is in Colorado like in the next week or so.
Yep.
So that's
you gotta play Colorado. It's like step 1 or step 2 on the trajectory when becoming
no, that's how it seems. So exchange program, sign us up. We'll we'll enroll.
And then at the end of the level, you get the bonus if you play Red Rocks finally, like
Right,
after
exactly.
5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
I'm liking this. All right, I'm gonna have a website for this before the end of the week. So let's make that. I do want to dig into the scene a little bit with you. This is one of the most interesting things that we talk about often with bands that don't consider themselves to be a jam band, but get kind of put into that scene or that bucket. You know, and we're curious to know how they feel about it. But for you all, you know, you use that term. In terms of just jam bands themselves, I mean, how do you feel about this scene today compared to when you all started out? Do you feel like there's just as much support? Did COVID change anything? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do feel like there's probably more support than ever at this point. It was always good, but it felt a little more niche. Not that it feels like mainstream now, but it just seems like there's just more. It's like a more of a recognizable thing when you tell someone what you're doing. Like this, the term jam band is a weird one, but it works and people sort of understand
What
it. And I
does it
think
even mean?
right. Yeah, and it's interesting when I explain it to like, you know, like a friend's parents or something, and then sometimes they'll come see us, and then they sort of like I think it can just be intuitively picked up on. They're like, oh yeah, you're up there, and you're like listening to each other, and you'll play this, and that guy will play that, and it's like a rudimentary explanation. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. Like, that's we're just jamming, like improvising, you know. And yeah, I think the scene's in a good place. And we've at times like wondered about that label also, just because we're, like I said earlier, like maybe a little bit like heavier and full throttle at times, and sometimes we're not sounding crazy danceable or funky, but at the core of that is
It's
still
a
that
wide umbrella.
right. Yeah, because that the improvisational spirit still like lies at the core of what we do. So hence the jam, I suppose.
That's true. And Kevin and I just spoke with a young band recently. I think was it Kirkos, who described themselves as dystopian jam band. And that was a new one for me. I hadn't heard that yet, but you know,
yeah, they're only 2 years in. They're 2 years in. They're a trio also. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm glad that you feel that way. I agree. I think that once it was safe to return, you know, to live music, I have seen nothing but packed rooms out here, even for bands that are coming in internationally that maybe haven't played in the States before. I mean, people really seem to want
New Master Sounds.
That's true. That was one. Yeah, that was great.
That's a good one.
We're talking about these markets where there's established support. I think about other areas, and there's so many in the country that don't maybe have that foundation for, you know, the venues and even people who are willing to kind of, you know, show up. And I always wonder to myself, you know, what do you do in that situation as a band? Do you look to play, you know?
Can we call them jam deserts?
I called it Music Desert when I lived in North Carolina and not in Asheville. That's different. It was a Music Desert. We'd get a couple shows here and there, not much.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I can say for us, we've had some great success in I guess what could be considered jam deserts, because I find that people in these maybe more peripheral towns are just so like appreciative of that this band that is from all the way down in Connecticut. Like, what are you doing here? They're just very supportive, and those have been some of the best, like most lively crowds. We actually found this great little market for us in Hanover, New Hampshire, which is not, you know, a tiny town. And there's a college there, but like this past year became one of our strongest markets. We did a sold out New Year's Eve show there this past New Year's Eve, and yeah, you pull into town and it's just a little one road town, but I guess there is a scene there because at this one venue, Sawtooth Kitchen,
someone showed up.
Yeah.
Totally.
So love those little towns for sure.
That always reminds me of going up to the fish festivals in Maine in the 90s, and the people who were owning the local gas station, restaurant, diner would literally be out there with posters like, welcome, we're so glad you're here. And
Yeah.
never seen anything like that, but they truly knew that, well, maybe they didn't know what they were in for. Let me say that at first. They may not have realized exactly what was coming their way the
The
first time.
next year they did. The second
Right.
year they did.
Yeah, sure did, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be an interesting thing to really want that music, and then when you get it, yeah, there's appreciation for it. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense to me, definitely.
Yeah. Not a lot of saturation. It's, as great as the scene down here is it yeah, it can be tough sometimes for especially the local bands to draw a crowd because there is so much opportunity on any given night to see music. So it's nice to get off the beaten path a bit. Yeah.
Right now, do you have physical copies when you play, or is this, or where am I going to send somebody to pick up a copy of the album?
We do have physical copies. Yeah. They'll be for sale at all the shows. They'll be up on the website very shortly. They just came through. So yeah, physical CDs, and then just the streaming platforms, or Bandcamp as well. It's just a spot if someone wanted to do a digital purchase, that helps the bands quite a bit. So it's up there.
That's all we can do anymore.
Yeah, no, it's about it. So
It's true. Now, I know you just released this album, but I have to ask, are you already kind of thinking at all about what you might want to do next, whether it's a full-length album? A lot of bands these days are dropping songs at a cadence, maybe not releasing a complete album, in one shot. What are you all thinking might be next for you?
Yeah, we have already started talking about more studio time. Again, kind of in that gap of time between recording the last one and this release, we've written almost a whole album's worth of new material. So yeah, we would love for the second album to now be predominantly newer material, whereas this last one, like I said, kind of spanned the catalog. And we probably would like maybe release a single or two, which we didn't do for this album because it's a lot of songs people have heard for a while. So I think we would take more of that approach, like the mostly new tunes, maybe some that haven't even been road tested, and then trickle out a single or two. And then the goal is to probably do another album, release it around this time next year. So that's kind of where our heads are at.
The thing with the industry now, though, is sadly that you kind of have to release the single things just to get your name out there. When it becomes content, which totally, I hate the term content. It's like grown under my skin so much recently, but
I know what you mean.
Would you monetize it? I tweeted today that Spotify wasn't a music service. It was a subscription service. What they're selling are subscriptions. They could care less what the music was.
Right. No, it's true. And yeah, the singles, they to get into the algorithm and all those fun words. But yeah, it's
you have 16 seconds to catch the listener.
Right. I've even seen, like somehow I got it on Spotify. I got into this weird playlist. It like was all jam band stuff, but it was all like 1 minute snippets of songs, which I think were from, a lot of them seem to be from like live compilations where like if they segue back into a song for a minute, there you have this like 1 minute track, and Spotify is just pushing on me all these quick little hits, which is great. But I'm like, geez, do we need to do the punk rock thing? Do we need some 2 minute songs? I guess.
You never know.
You make more money. Whoever made the playlist, this is what I think about that. Whoever made the playlist put all of them on there because they make more money per play. So if it's a bunch of 1 minute tracks in 12 minutes, they can make 12 cents or whatever they're going to make.
No, it makes sense.
That might be a new model, like you're saying, Pete. If it's not kind of monitored by how long each track is, just a listen, there could be a way to game that. Maybe
Right. Yeah.
take your songs, break them up into about 20 pieces, and
Right.
Yeah. Hey.
Little mini opuses. You know,
Yeah.
Minor Threat's whole catalog is under 45 minutes. So
Yeah. I believe it. Punk rock
they
was
can
like
make a
my
fortune.
first love. So.
oh, you and
Yeah.
Kevin have that in common. He's
Yeah,
a
I'm a huge fan.
huge
All
fan.
that.
Oh, right on.
I'm
Nice. Love it.
I'm a big punk rock guy. Yes, I saw the TSOL played this past weekend, and a buddy of mine went and saw it, and isn't the original singer, but he
Right
said
on.
they
Well,
sounded good. They did all the hits. It's
nice.
all about
Hey.
doing the hits, right?
No, seems to be having a little bit of a resurgence too. I know like NoFX is doing like the farewell tour and hoping
Right.
to make it to that. But
Circle
yeah,
Jerks played in Baltimore the other night, and I didn't realize it till like 20 minutes before it started. And I was like, "You need to pay attention, Kevin. You need to put your foot back in that world."
yeah, hey,
Going, come on, there's tech for that.
Yes, there's an app for that.
Literally, like several. But that does make me think. And I say this, out of love, of course, for bands that have been around for a long time.
Mhm.
There's a kind of a different type of, I don't want to say competition, but there's that thing of bands that have been around for a really long time that are able to, get out there and play. And I love that. It's got to be hard to know when to hang it up. We talk about like Dead and
For sure.
Company a lot, and
You hang around long enough, you become relevant again.
yeah, right. Like Jean
Right.
Jackets, check that out, right? It's back.
Hey, yeah, no, it's all. No, it's true though.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's ever, not frustrating, but if that's ever a thought for other bands, like, oh, okay, now we're going to see whoever it is coming back for their 20th, reunion tour. People have that name in their mind. They're going to go.
Right.
To me, there's a point where, as a non-artist, as a fan, I wonder, does that hurt other bands that are, coming to the top just because of all of the content that's out there to promote these things? But I don't know. I mean, is that something that you all ever think about?
Yeah, we do think about it. It's tough to say that it hurts the smaller bands. It can be frustrating. I love the Grateful Dead as much as anyone, but when you see the kind of the Dead and Co's kind of milking it along and stuff like that. I mean, great band, but it's frustrating is not even the right word, because it's like, why not? They're doing their thing and people are enjoying it. But I don't think it has a negative effect, other than that, like maybe if that band's in town and you're trying to book a gig or something, but in which
Right.
case you're probably just doing an after party. And it's also, on the same token, inspiring to see the older bands out there doing it. It's
The Disco Biscuits are having the best year of their
Sure.
career in
Right.
2024. I mean,
They are.
Yeah.
They're loving
No,
it.
I love seeing that, because a band like us too, we've been around 10 plus years now, and sure, it's like, gosh, we could be so much further along, but also so grateful for where we are, and we're like hungrier now than ever. And it's like, well, there's no linear path for this whole thing to happen necessarily. So to see
every band had a speed bump thrown at them, and some
Right,
people
yeah.
took the speed bump and just jumped the line like goose to go to the top. But I
Sure,
think
yeah.
most people bottomed out a little.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then some people, like, they couldn't get the car back on the road, and
There you go.
the bands that have come back, that have come through that, there's a lot of like motivation and hunger in some of these bands that have been around a while, but are like, okay, like we almost had it taken from us, so let's really get after it. So yeah, if a band can be 15, 20 years deep and having the best tours of their life, I think that's great.
Yeah, Spafford, Mo. I mean, bands that have that history. Sometimes even a lineup change. I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to spark that.
Right.
And just thinking about, for you all, we talked a little bit about some shows you have coming up. I know you all are also going to be at Trout Stock for
Correct. Yeah.
the rest of the year. I mean, is there anything else you'd want to share about what you have coming up or plans that you might have?
Yeah, trout stock we're excited for. Um, right now it's a lot of just getting the summer schedule congealed. May is going to be more about continuing to polish off some of these newer tunes that we're writing, doing a little bit of travel, and then yeah, the books right now for June and beyond are like congealing as we speak. So I think there's going to be some Burlington, Vermont, some Brooklyn, New York in there, some more Connecticut plays. I'm sure a stop back up to Hanover, which, like I said, has become one of our favorite spots. We're in negotiating another show up there. So yeah, I think probably within the next month or so there'll be some announcements to be made. Yeah.
Very cool.
We're becoming the official trout stock YouTube page because we had Leon Trout on last week.
Right on. Yeah,
I
actually, I watched that one. Yeah, I like that. That was cool. We've actually never met them, but yeah, cool thing that they got going on. Really excited to be a part of that. So
Yeah,
fun.
and no easy feat, as we know. It's never easy to, create and kind of keep an event like that going. Literally, what, an hour or two ago, Kevin, we were talking about, was it Skull and Roses Festival? That's had to cancel. The event is not happening, and
no refunds.
No refunds.
Oof. Yeah, it's brutal. It's
refunds.
tough out there. No.
Yeah.
The festival scene seems to be cutthroat, not only in trying to get the bands on the bill, but just for the festivals themselves staying afloat. It's pretty wild scenes out there.
I hear Coachella might be on thin ice. There's no
Really?
ticket
Wow.
sale.
Yeah, I mean, that's saturation,
Sure. Well, when you all maybe after trout stock or later in the year, we love getting back together with people we've talked to for some updates. So we'll definitely look to do that again. And then in the meantime, you mentioned the website, Bandcamp, of course, streaming platform for people to be able to support you all and what you do. Is there anything else that you'd want people to know or kind of point people to?
Yeah, all of those things. The website, canopytheband.com, which links to all of our socials. Instagram at Canopy Live. We're on Facebook. You'll recognize our logo as you search through there. So, yeah, and just come out to the show, support, buy a ticket. That's the best way to support for sure. So, yeah, and just keep the eyes and the ears peeled. And the support thus far has been great. It's been probably the best 2 years of the band's history as a band that, like I said, is about 10 years old as we are. So it's been great. Yeah, really no complaints.
Oh, that's awesome. I do have a quick question though about your logo.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you mentioned that. If I remember correctly, it's in terms of suits of cards. Is it Spade that's on your logo?
Correct. Yep.
What is there a significance? I'm sure there is to that.
Yeah, there is. I wouldn't call it a deep significance, but we sort of have this unofficial hashtag slogan, which is "Gamble on Music."
Oh, cool.
Which for us means a few things. Like improvisationally, it means we're up there taking a gamble. We're gambling on trying to navigate this crazy career, and it's got a few
an overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. After this, I'm hoping. So the Spade is just kind of a nod to playing cards, just that slight gambling nod, because we're all out here just gambling. So
yeah. Oh, I love that. Very cool. Well, Pete, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, letting us test this out. I'm assuming that this came through over Facebook. I've seen a couple comments pop up. But, really happy.
All right,
I'm going
to run the end credits.
Right on. Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Got it.